Welcome back to the 17 News at Sunrise podcast, where we share your news on your schedule.
Working in the spirit of the Golden Empire, this is 17 News at Sunrise.
Good morning. Right now at 5, the countdown is on to the inauguration of a new president tomorrow. Attentions are turning to what orders Joe Biden plans to issue within hours of being sworn in, and what President Trump will do today, his final full day in office. The COVID-19 death toll tops 400,000 lives in the U.S., the highest tally in the world. But there is some good news here at home as we see hospitalizations begin to drop. A look at the latest numbers coming up. Today is Tuesday, January 19th, 2021. Good morning, Kern County, and thanks so much for starting your day with us here on this Tuesday morning. I'm Alex Fisher along with Maddie Jansen, and I think, Maddie, the top story, or one of the top stories today is going to be our weather. A lot of wind coming through the valley. Yeah,
it was pretty noisy this morning when I woke up in the mountains, and there was some debris on the highway as I drove in. So just a heads up if you're headed out on the highway or anything like that. There are tumbleweeds everywhere, and let's check in with Kevin. See what kind of winds we're expecting for the rest of our Tuesday.
Yeah, Maddie, we're expecting a major wind event as we progress here throughout the day. It will be dry. We're not expecting any rain or anything like that, but there will be plenty of dust to go around for everybody here in the valley. Let's get right to it. We have a busy morning ahead, and you can see the current winds right now are in the Kern County mountains, and we've been seeing some good wind speeds up in the mountain and desert locations. Hasn't made its way into the valley just yet, but that will change as we progress into the morning. Here's a look at our wind gusts so far. Tehachapi had a wind gust at 43, along with Stallion Springs, Bear Valley at 42, along with Lake Isabella and out at Edwards. They also saw wind gusts of 42 miles per hour. So definitely it is a windy morning. Here's a look at our wind forecast, and you can see by 10, 11 o'clock this morning, those winds will push into the valley. There'll be a downsloping wind out of the east, and so we are expecting them to be fairly strong. And at some point, we could see wind gusts near 60 miles per hour. The camera at our studios in downtown Bakersfield not moving much right now. We've got 54 degrees, a north-northeast wind at 13 out at Meadows Field. Temperatures today will be in the 60s, so another mild day expected around the area. And here's a look, a live picture from our Adventist Health Cam into Tehachapi, and you can see the winds are really blowing right now. If you are going to be traveling along the 58, take your time, especially if you're in a high-profile vehicle. It is not advised for today. So if you're pulling a big camper, something like that, it's going to be a dangerous one. 41 degrees on the temperature up in Tehachapi with a sustained wind out of the east-southeast at 20 right now. And temperatures as we go throughout today expected in the 40s. I'll have much more on this coming up in just a little bit. For now, we'll send it back over to you.
All right, thanks, Kev. In just over 24 hours, America will have a new president. And he has plans to start turning things around on day one. Tracy Ponce has more on the orders Joe Biden's team says he'll sign within hours of being sworn in, and what President Trump may announce on his last full day in office.
Maddie, good morning from Washington, where we're told President Trump may be considering as many as 100 pardons, and President-elect Biden planning to roll back many of his policies within hours of taking his oath. Tonight, from the Lincoln Memorial, Joe Biden will deliver his final message as president-elect before his highly anticipated inaugural speech tomorrow.
It's a message of unity. It's a message of getting things done. That's what he'll be talking about January 20th.
Biden's team says he'll start signing executive orders on day one, creating a path to citizenship, ending the national emergency at the border, rejoining the World Health Organization and the Paris Climate Agreement, and reversing the ban on transgender people in the military. A 10-day blitz of immediate actions to address the nation's most urgent needs. Today, 5 Senate committees questioned Biden's cabinet nominees under a massive military presence at the Capitol.
This is 3 times the number of guardsmen we would normally have in support of the United States Secret Service.
To all the people of this country, you will be in my heart forever.
First Lady Melania Trump sharing her final message to the nation, her husband hasn't been seen in a week. Sources familiar tell NBC News President Trump could announce dozens of pardons and commutations as soon as today, while working on his impeachment defense and a red carpet send-off. Tomorrow, he becomes the first president in more than 150 years to skip inauguration, saying goodbye to a city and a nation lit with the glow of democracy. That send-off said to include a color guard, a military band, a 21-gun salute, plus possible remarks from the president as he leaves Joint Base Andrews for the last time as commander-in-chief early tomorrow morning. From Capitol Hill, I'm Tracy Potts, 17 News.
The fallout continues for Congressman Kevin McCarthy, the House Minority Leader. 2 weeks after a mob laid siege to the Capitol and a week after McCarthy declined to vote to impeach President Trump in response to that riot, criticism of the Bakersfield Republican continues to roll in. After escaping the Capitol mob on January 6th, McCarthy returned and, citing debunked claims of election fraud, raised objections to the electoral votes in 2 states that went to Biden. A week later, in the House's impeachment hearing, January 13th, McCarthy said Trump bears some responsibility for the riot, but then voted against impeachment. 10 Republicans, including fellow Kern County Congressman David Valadao and Wyoming's Liz Cheney, regarded by many as McCarthy's chief rival for leadership of the caucus going forward, voted to impeach. Former Congressman Bill Thomas, who hired McCarthy as an intern almost 30 years ago, called the Republican leader a hypocrite in an exclusive interview with 17 News.
Kevin McCarthy voted not to impeach President Trump, and David Valadao voted to impeach him. Hypocrites and heroes.
Yeah. But the criticism of McCarthy has not stopped with his former mentor. The blowback has been relentless and widespread. The Republican anti-Trump Lincoln Project released an ad calling him a pathetic enabler. A scathing Sacramento Bee editorial denounced him as soulless. An Orange County Register op-ed called him as odious a creature as we've ever seen in American politics. LA Times columnist Nicholas Goldberg called him Trump's senior sucker-upper and enabler. Miriam Powell, acknowledging Thomas's criticism of McCarthy in the New York Times this past weekend, said McCarthy is learning that charm has its limits. And last night, Congressman McCarthy responded to our request for comment about the criticism that he's faced recently and about the inauguration. He responded with this statement. As a member of the Joint Congressional Committee on Inaugural Ceremonies, I have full confidence that the peaceful transfer of power that occurs with the changing of an administration will go off without a hitch on January 20th. Starting the very next day, Congress will get right to work on the issues that matter most to the American people. For our community, that means defeating the coronavirus and restoring our economy and way of life.
As Vice President-elect Kamala Harris prepares to take the oath of office, she has officially resigned as California's U.S. Senator, and that officially set off a political domino effect here in California for its leadership. 17's Ashley Zavala has more from our Capitol Bureau.
Kamala Harris's signature on her resignation letter as U.S. Senator set off 3 major leadership changes in California Monday.
I'm not saying goodbye. In many ways, I'm now saying hello as your vice president. But I do want to thank you for the honor of representing the place of my birth as a proud daughter of California.
With her resignation letter in hand, Governor Gavin Newsom officially appointed California Secretary of State Alex Padilla to take her seat, sending the first Latino to Washington, D.C. to represent the Golden State in the U.S. Senate. Padilla tweeted Monday, "I am honored and humbled by the trust placed in me. I intend to work each and every day to honor that trust and deliver for all Californians." Padilla resigned as Secretary of State Monday. With that letter also in hand, Newsom officially nominated San Diego Assemblywoman Shirley Weber for the office. If confirmed, she'll be the first ever African-American to serve as California's Secretary of State. She tweeted Monday, in part, that she's committed to continuing the work of protecting voting rights and expanding access to the ballot. The legislature has 90 days to confirm Weber's position, but the Secretary of State's office tells us it could be until at least early February until that happens. In the meantime, James Schwab, who is the office's chief deputy, will serve as acting Secretary of State. Reporting in Sacramento, Ashley Zavala, 17 News.
A sigh of relief for one family whose animals were saved by firefighters in South Bakersfield. Firefighters rescued 3 dogs and a guinea pig from a house fire Monday evening on Fremont Street. The Bakersfield Fire Department said there was a fire in a bedroom, and the residents were able to get out before firefighters arrived. The firefighters were able to get the animals out safely.
Our crews were able to save several animals in there. I believe it was 3 dogs and 1 guinea pig. So that was a success. We kept the damage to a minimum.
According to the fire department, the fire is still under investigation. The Mega Millions and Powerball jackpots have once again climbed after no winning tickets were purchased this weekend. The Mega Millions jackpot is now $850 million with the lump sum option of $628.2 million. Now that drawing is later tonight. The Powerball jackpot is $730 million and the lump sum option at $546 million. Now that drawing is tomorrow night. The odds of winning the Powerball are 1 in 292.2 million, and the odds of winning the Mega Millions, 1 in 302.5 million.
We're back here at 5:20, making news around the nation this morning. A Toledo police officer was shot and killed in an armed standoff Monday night. According to Police Chief George Krall, 24-year-old officer Brandon Stalker was shot once and died. Police said Officer Stalker was doing perimeter security during a standoff. After SWAT officers sent smoke into the home, the gunman came out with 2 guns, striking Officer Stalker and killing him.
I'm sad to say that Officer Brandon Stalker was struck once and has passed away. Officer Stalker is a 24-year-old white male who was hired on the Toledo Police Department in July of 2018, and he was an amazing police officer. He has a fiance and they have a very young child.
Toledo police say negotiators were at the scene but were unsuccessful. The shooting is still under investigation. A Colorado man facing federal charges in connection with the riots at the U.S. Capitol has turned himself into authorities. Court documents say 24-year-old Robert Giswine was seen in videos and photos assaulting a federal officer, intimidating Capitol Police with a spray canister, a temporary barrier, and a baseball bat. This is final video of the man from 2018. The affidavit says that he also appears to be affiliated with a radical militia group, and he's believed to run a private paramilitary training group. Among the charges he faces, assault on a federal officer, destruction of government property, and obstruction of an official proceeding.
This morning, the search will continue for a 12-year-old California boy who was swept out to sea yesterday. Boats and helicopters are being used to try and locate Arune Pruthi, who was swept into the ocean at Cowell Ranch State Beach in Half Moon Bay. Officials say Pruthi of Fremont was sitting on the sand when a wave swept him, his father, and his 8-year-old brother into the ocean. The boy's father and brother were able to get out of the water. Rescue crews worked in the darkness and nighttime hours in search of Pruthi. They will resume their search this morning at sunrise.
GET Business Watch is brought to you by Grapevine MSP Technology Services, the Valley's leading IT service provider.
Welcome back to your 17 Business Watch, and it's hard to believe, but Valentine's Day is less than a month away. And if you're struggling for ideas that won't ruin your New Year's resolution, we have an idea for you. Every year, the Loveland, Colorado post office gets mail from around the world to get a postmark from the nation's sweetheart city. It's relatively simple. You put your addressed and stamped Valentine's card inside a larger first-class envelope and then send it to the postmaster in Loveland. That's where a group of volunteers will open the envelope, add a specifically designed stamp and love poem, then send the card to its intended recipient. International mail needs to arrive in Loveland by February 1st and U.S. mail by February 7th.
Cute idea. Across the country, many states have seen a sharp increase in gun sales over the past year. In Denver, Colorado is no exception, but officials are warning that another troubling trend may be linked to the uptick in firearm purchases. Matt Jablow has the story.
Business is booming at the Bristlecone gun store in Lakewood. Now in its 6th year, Bristlecone had its best year ever in 2020. after posting a 65% increase in sales from the year before.
Handguns, 9mm handguns.
Jacqueline Clark, the store's co-owner, says the sharp uptick in sales began last March and has continued ever since.
We attribute it to COVID and people's perception of a greater need for personal and home defense, so the social unrest.
Statewide last year, the Colorado Bureau of Investigation conducted more than 500,000 background checks for gun sales, almost all of which were approved. It was the most in CBI's history and a 46% increase from 2019. Unfortunately, the increase in legal gun sales was matched throughout much of the Front Range last year by an increase in stolen guns.
Our biggest concern is illegal guns.
Denver Police Chief Paul Pazin says many of those stolen guns were then used to commit other, more violent crimes.
These illegal guns that end up on our street have tragic consequences, and we don't get to go backwards from that.
According to Pazin, the number of stolen guns declined in Denver for 3 straight years until last year, the year of the global pandemic, economic hardships, and significant increases in crime.
Perfect, horrible storm.
So far this year, there are no signs yet that the storm is slowing down significantly. But Pazin is hoping that by properly securing their weapons, gun owners will help reduce the number of stolen guns that are flooding Denver streets.
We beg people, we ask people to be responsible gun owners.
That was Magic Blow reporting.
Working in the spirit of the Golden Empire, this is 17 News at Sunrise.
The 17 News at Sunrise podcast is a production of KGET and Nexstar Media Group. For more on all of the headlines in today's show, head to kget.com.